Today, we're going to the Battle of Camden, just north of Camden, South Carolina. It's a very overcast, gray day. It's still kind of warm, like 68 degrees, humid, getting ready to rain. So I hope I can get this done before it does rain. And I'm going to go through town to show you the town of Camden instead of the back roads. Now, the Battle of Camden was one of the worst defeats in American military history. It was August 16th, 1780. And it was fought between the Patriot commander, General Horatio Gates, who was known as the hero of Saratoga, which was an American victory earlier in the war up in New York. And his actions here at Camden were, shall we say, a little less than heroic. And on the British side was General Lord Cornwallis himself. They had captured Charleston just in May of 1780, and they were looking to expand their outposts and defenses further up into South Carolina. So they made Camden one of the garrisons and a supply area. And Cornwallis got word that Gates was leading his men, his army, from Morristown, New Jersey, all the way from Morristown down to confront Cornwallis. And they met up in Camden. They had General Baron de Kalb. He was a French-German, emigrated to America, and fought on the American side as a general in the Continental Army. We'll talk more about de Kalb when we get to Camden. This is intersection of busy U.S. Highway 1. It goes all the way from Maine to Florida, I think. This is the little town of Lugoff. And the sun's coming out. Unbelievable. And now we're in the little town of Camden. Camden's not a little town. It's probably 10,000 maybe? And it's the birthplace of the first black player in the American League, Larry Doby. This is downtown Camden. And then we're on the corner of Broad Street, which is 601, US 601, and de Kalb, from Baron de Kalb. And you'll see a lot of old colonial houses here. This town dates from, I don't know, 1748, 1750. There's one right there. And next time I go out, we'll show you the Battle of Hobkirk Hill, which is right up here on Green Street, named after Nathaniel Greene, who had his headquarters here the next year, 1781. And I think we were supposed to go there. I'm gonna pull over and find out. So here we are at the Camden battlefield site. This is where Baron de Kalb, mortally wounded on that spot, August 16th, 1780. And apparently he was shot 3 times and stabbed or bayoneted 8 times. So he had 11 wounds, and he was still living. And the British, in those days, they treated Patriot officers just like their own, and they took him back to Camden to recuperate, but he passed away. And he's buried right there in Camden at the church in downtown. So this is the first display here at the battlefield. And we talked about General Gates. In July, Gates marched his army with Major General Baron de Kalb and more than 1,000 Maryland and Delaware regular Continentals all the way from Morristown, New Jersey, with the intent of liberating the state from British control. And while marching through Camden, towards Camden, Gates' troops were getting sicker and sicker because they were eating green corn and green peaches, and they also thought mixing their hair powder in to their soup would make it thicker. Well, all it did is make them sick. Can you imagine that? Putting your hair powder in with your soup? Anyway, they have benches here for presentations, which, well, I've never come in this far. Anyway, the poor diet had a lot of the men had some serious effects, and the night before the battle, the Gates's men were breaking ranks, shall we say, running into the woods all night. So at dawn, both armies faced each other about 200 yards apart. Here's some damn British dragoons under Bannister Tarleton.
Check 1, 2, 1, 2, check. Check 1, 2, 1, 2.
And here's the Patriot forces mustering, getting ready for the battle. There's Continental in blue, and then the militia in their raggedy homespun stuff. And British and Americans both carried the same weapon.
Very often it was more convenient and less hot to wear these hunting shirts. They were
For sure.
Also much cheaper and easier to mass
Yeah.
Homespun.
In fact, General Washington, he actually ordered these early in the war because there was a shortage of wool. And so it took actually several years for the Continental Army to standardize on blue-faced red.
It was actually basically the end of the war, just after the war, when that became the standard.
Yeah, yeah.
Because colonies each had their own, sort of their own coat colors.
Right.
Yep.
You get a little standardization after the lottery coats come out, but those are still brown-faced red and blue-faced red, so it's still different, and not every unit got a lottery coat.
It was confusing, I bet, because as Cody said, I mean, so much of the color of the units were based on the availability of cloth. And so, especially early in the war, if you looked out at a battlefield, you may see 6, 7, 8 variations of uniforms. And it became confusing for the men. They didn't even know, hey, is that the enemy or not? You know?
When you have loyalist units and you have, with all their own coat colors, so he would actually, this is a good way to see that he's a Continental.
Yeah.
because with the cock cats,
Yes.
the white trim gets added after we have our alliance with France.
Bad guys.
Yeah. Watch it, Hessians.
Yeah.
Jägers.
Jägersoldaten.
The artillery commander, he's going to turn to General Gates. Sir, I see the enemy upon the field. Request permission to fire. Gates gives him permission to fire. So when the battle actually begins, we are the one who initiates. Everything, all the artillery used on that battlefield was grape shot because of the range. There's no sense to use solid cannonball. It's not going to go anywhere, not do anything. Because they're so close together, go up with Lewis.
Take care. Give. Fire.
A lot of the men would take cover to get behind trees. They'll down. All this whistling grape shot, canister shots flying all around them. They don't want to get hit.
Give. Fire.
Oh, lost his wick.
Yep. I'm not sure my ears can take much more of this. The British had about 2,335 troops, and the Patriot forces had about 3,500, but 2,250 of those were inexperienced Virginia and North Carolina militia, which, you know, they're like farmers that go and help the cause.
We had a militia law, so every company came from a district, and they elected their officers. They would drill.
They have to serve a certain amount of time.
They had a certain amount of time. So the actual militia age is 16 to 60, and that's because of the Native Americans, the Spanish. You know, who knows? Each community had to be ready to respond to a call for action. So the militias are very common. They were militia regiments.
Gates, at this point, when they were facing each other, made a critical mistake in deploying his troops. At that time in warfare, the most experienced troops were placed on the right flank, right side of the line. Gates did that with his veterans from Maryland and Delaware, but he should have realized that Cornwallis was going to do the same. And as a result, the experienced British soldiers came up against really inexperienced militia from Virginia on the left-hand side. So when the British advanced with bayonets, most of the Virginians just scattered, turned, and ran, and some without even firing a shot.
If they're militia, charge them with a bayonet.
So here come the British charging, and you see the
as they're falling back,
militia falling
they run
back.
into their militia group.
This in turn caused the North Carolina militia on the same side, 1,800 of them, to turn tail and run also. And while the British were wheeling left and attacking the flank.
And the militia. So they had no idea that their flank is completely open.
Right.
So they're advancing to meet the British.
And there's the British down
They
in
don't
the
know
woods.
that their whole left side is exposed.
The Continental regulars from Maryland and Delaware, under DeKalb, stood their ground and counterattacked, but they had no idea how bad things were getting over there on the left. And soon there were only 800 Continentals facing 2,000 British regulars. And that's when the Patriot ranks finally broke, and General Gates and some of his rest of his army turned tail and fled. The final blow came when Cornwallis ordered Banastre Tarleton's British Legion to attack from the rear with his cavalry, and they slashed him to pieces.
Dice heavily with their bayonets and their sabers. Either taken prisoner or there's no survivors on the field.
A fired without thinking, except that I might prevent the man opposite from killing me. I confess that I was amongst the first that fled. Private Watts from North Carolina militia. Gates took a lot of heat for his 3-day panic horse ride, 180 miles all the way to Hillsborough, North Carolina. Some labeled him a coward. I wouldn't call him a coward, but he made some strategic errors. Gates was furloughed and replaced by Washington with Major General Nathaniel Greene in December of 1780, and that turned out to be a good move. The battlefield was taken by the British in an hour. It was a humiliating defeat for the Patriots, and it led Cornwallis to believe that the rebellion would soon be crushed, and that he could easily quash any further insurrection and march up into North Carolina and Virginia. And I don't know if you can check out the YouTube videos. They found the remains of 14 American soldiers buried in shallow graves, and they reinterred them a couple of years ago in a big ceremony. Here it says, soldiers of the 1st Maryland Brigade was contested, right wing of the British Army, regular troops. That's what I was telling you. The 5 flags mark the exact location where 5 Continental soldiers were buried together in a shallow grave. They were carefully excavated by archaeologists and respectfully reinterred August 13th, 2023 in the old Presbyterian Cemetery in Camden. 2 of the soldiers were between 16 and 19 years old at the time of death. This is where the 5 flags, they were buried in a shallow grave here. This flat depression in the ground is the surviving imprint of the Great Wagon Road, a route used by thousands of settlers from 1740 to early 1800s. It was the interstate highway of its day, the Great Wagon Road. Battle of Camden. Near here on August 16th, 1780, American Army under General Gates was defeated by British forces under Lord Cornwallis. Major General Baron de Kalb was mortally wounded. This is the entrance to the battlefield. They've done a pretty good job since I was here last. There's a big sign. It's part of the Liberty Trail, so you'll know it when you go by it. The losses here were pretty staggering. The Patriot losses were 900 killed or wounded, 1,000 were taken prisoner. The British captured 8 cannons and 200 wagons. The British losses were 324 killed or wounded, 68 were killed, 245 were wounded. And what this board shows you is we're part of the Liberty Trail. And I don't know if you can see, but all these dots, all these battles were fought in South Carolina. So I've got quite a lot of work cut out for me.